Thought it was fitting that I would rock this tee for this video. How's it going, gamers? Welcome to the dojo, and today we're going to be doing a unboxing and pretty big haul of my Japan pickups for my recent trip. So for context, I just got back earlier this week from a 2-week trip out to Japan. I spent a week in Tokyo in the mainland area, and then a week in Okinawa, in the island that I was born in and spent a lot of my life in, where my family is currently at. So got to go home and visit them. All around, great vacation. If you're interested in the vlogs ready to come from that trip, you can actually check out my personal and lifestyle channel. I have a lot of content I need to upload from that trip. But a big part of that trip, at least for me, in this time around, was game hunting and retro game finds and whatnot. You see, even though I spent 20 plus years of my life in Japan, I was not a game collector or a retro game collector back then, so a lot of that was lost on me, a lot of lost time. The last trip in January that I made back home was the first time I actually got to go proper game hunting in Japan, and this time around, since I was spending more time in mainland, I got to check out more of the selection and check out more of the stores in that area as well. So I hit up all the typical spots if you've heard or have visited, the Hard Off chains, the Surigaya chains, as well as some other outlets and hobby shops, and then the kind of tourist attractions or the typical spots that you hear a lot about, like the Super Potatoes and whatnot, that tend to be definitely on the higher price point because they're more catered to that market now. But still, nonetheless, the amount of selection, the stuff you get to see out there is just really fun. And this time around, I had more of a plan and, stuff I wanted to go in for. And in particular, I'll talk about some of these items back here that were like on my list to find, hopefully, while I was out there on this last 2-week trip. So there's a lot to go through here. This is just some of what I picked up. Believe it or not, I still have some packages coming in the mail from my parents because I couldn't fit everything in my luggage. But we'll talk about that. I'm going to have some more videos coming out when it comes to game hunting in Japan, since I have so much content from this last trip. So with that, strap in, let's get set up and start unboxing and taking a look at some of the finds here. Okay, so the way I decided to tackle this is to kind of go through the loosey-goosey items first, just to kind of make it easy, the smaller items, and then we'll get into the kind of bigger stuff. A lot of the bigger stuff I've yet to even unbox or even test, because some of this stuff was used or potentially junk and whatnot, so a lot of this will be a first for me. I wanted to start off with the N64, the Nintendo 64, because for those who don't know, if you haven't seen the N64 Tour Series, we're going for the complete, not just the NA collection, but the JP collection as well. Japanese N64 library. So we have a couple of games here, and truthfully, I don't even know a lot of these games. My Japanese definitely needs some brushing up, and while I was able to manage out on this trip, there's a lot of these titles that I still couldn't read or had to use like Google Translate for. So let's go through some of the loose titles. A lot of these are from various stores, like I said, whether it's like Hard Off, Surigaya, or even some from Super Potato. But we got a couple of games here. This one is from the manufacturer Hudson, which makes games like Bomberman and whatnot, and they're a very popular company in Japan. This one, I don't even know, because some of these are Japanese exclusives that only came out in Japan, while some of them are obviously like remakes of, or the JP versions. So, for example, like Kirby 64. A lot of games we got in box, which was nice because NA versions for the CIB tend to be much more expensive, whereas for the Japanese versions, you get some cool boxes, cool artwork, which I've always been a fan of, like the Japanese artwork, and the prices are phenomenal, especially with the yen rate. So this is like 2,600 yen, which like typical one-to-one would be like $26, but this is probably closer to like less than $20. That's the other thing. Like when you're traveling to Japan, the used market is very popular out there because it's just there's so much selection and a lot of, obviously a lot of the stuff originated from there. But the bigger thing about Japanese used goods is like they just take care of their stuff, man. So like you often find stuff like this that is just in great condition. I mean, look at this like box. It's phenomenal. But yeah, that's the other great thing is like these just are usually kept in such great condition. So one of the big benefits of being able to buy used out there is not just the price, but just the condition you're going to find stuff in. So this is the Kirby for the N64. Apparently this one is called like Robot Ponkotsu. I don't think this is an equivalent of an NA title. I'm pretty sure this is a JP exclusive, but please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. We have a sumo wrestling game here for the N64, which I do believe is a Japanese exclusive, so this will be nice to check out. This one, as you can see, only 580 yen, a little bit under $4. This is Wonder Project J2. I have heard of this title, popular title, so nice to get this. This was an interesting one. This is Violence Killer. I believe this is this 2? But what this is, if you can't tell from the little small English text on the bottom or just the background, this is Turok. So this is, I think, Turok 2, if I'm not mistaken, the JP version. But it's crazy. That's how that translates in the JP title. Violence Killer for Turok, which is amazing. Tactics Soccer. Japanese N64 has a ton, and I mean a ton of sports titles for it. If you thought like the standard N64 had a lot of sports titles, wait till you see like the Japanese J-League series and whatnot. But that's a soccer game. This one is not Densha Go, but this is I believe a train simulator. I don't think it's called Densha Go. My kanji is definitely weak here, but that is what train means. So I believe this is the train simulator for N64, which there's a lot of train simulators in general for the Japanese market. So interesting title for the N64. Just one of those cool nuanced titles. Another cool one here. This is, I believe, a fighting game here, and the title's escaping me right now. I actually want to look this up. Okay, I stand corrected. Not even going to edit this out. This is not a fighting game. This is, despite what the title looks like, this is a mahjong game. So a mahjong, it's kind of like the dominoes, the Asian dominoes. Yeah, not what I expected at all when I saw this cover art. This looked like a beat 'em up title, but yeah, this is apparently a mahjong game, of which there are many for the N64. GoldenEye 007. This one was definitely a little bit on the more pricier side. This is like over $20 barely, or maybe just right under $20. But this is the GoldenEye 007 edition. I was looking for this complete in box. I really wanted this in the Japanese box, but cool to finally get this title. Pretty big fan of the artwork that they had here. This one is St. Andrew's Old Course. I'm assuming this is like a golf game, if not some sort of odd simulator, because it looks like a sort of golf style game. But the funny thing is, I'll show you here in a second. I got this game loose for like literally $2, and then ended up finding it complete in box for like slightly more, and ended up getting that too. So maybe we'll give this away or something. Wave Race 64, a classic N64 title, and this is the Japanese edition, which is pretty cool, pretty sick here. But yeah, got this for 900 yen, a little bit more pricier, and honestly, I think I saw a lot of these complete in box. So like, we'll talk about that in another video, but some of the mistakes here, like depending on the time you got in Japan and what you're going for, obviously CIB is a little bit more to carry around and pack, but you're gonna find a lot of these complete in box at a lot of stores. So for me, at least for the Japanese titles, I wish I would have got more in these kind of styles and format, just because I think it's cooler and easier to display when they're CIB like this. And speaking of CIB, we have a couple more titles that I picked up here. I wanted to complete the Mario Party series, because I actually have Mario Party 3 in box, complete in box, and I believe I have the original Mario Party. So this box definitely a little bit more beat up here. And I'm gonna want to get box protectors for these JP ones, since they're definitely a different size from the N64. Okay, so this one cheaper, but maybe that's why it is missing the manual. Really, the box is what's more important for me display-wise than just having it in the collection. So Mario Party 2, maybe one day I'll go for the Japanese manual, if that's ever something I want to get to complete. Speaking of that, St. Andrew's Old Course here, yeah, does look like a golfing game here, golfing sim game. So but yeah, we got this here, and looks like manual, cart, all of that included here. Yeah, I don't think this is equivalent of Bassmaster. I think this is just like a Japanese fishing game, like a la Bassmaster, but not actually Bassmaster, if I'm not mistaken here. And then we have Star Wars Shadow of the Empire. I saw this box a lot and for varying prices, but I really, really like the artwork that they have for this and how the box looks for the Japanese version. So this is a direct equivalent. Like, this is the Japanese version of the Star Wars game, so this is not like an exclusive or anything. Nearly like 12, 13 bucks, but here we have it. This is also complete. I can see the manual and everything in there, so great deal overall on some of these box games. So yeah, quite a bit added to the N64 collection. Nothing crazy heavy. Ultimately, I think the heaviest game I saw when it came to Japanese N64 was actually the Evangelion game, and I think that's like the Neon Genesis. I didn't know much about it, but it was going for like 60, 70 bucks. So I think it was going for like about what it goes for traditionally loose anyway. So slightly regret not copying that because it's just not something you typically see, but nonetheless, I think still got a good selection of overall N64 games. Speaking of games, let's move on to the disc games that I picked up, of which this trip I actually got a lot. I've been really wanting to collect like Japanese horror and just horror games in general. And if you know anything about the NA market, super, super expensive when it comes to this category. So we got a couple here across different systems. Starting with the original PlayStation, this is Shadow Tower for the PS1. This is a game I had not heard about, and this comes with the spine card, which is nice. So this is a game I didn't know anything about, to be honest, but it is a FromSoft game. So, makers of all the famous, Souls-like games, I thought it'd be cool to have some FromSoft history here, and I thought the artwork looked sick, and I got this for like a steal. I don't have the price on this right now, but I'm pretty sure I got this for like less than $8, if I'm not mistaken. So Shadow Tower, take a look at that artwork here for the PS1. So I definitely invested a lot in the PlayStation 1 this time around. Speaking of some classic horror titles, we have the Clock Tower series here. This is the Ghost Head series. This I actually got at, I believe this is the one that I got at Super Potato. I got one of the Clock Tower games at Super Potato. Recommendations or guides we'll talk to you about, but at the same time, it's like also one of the most known ones for being more expensive because it's very self-aware of like the market it's in and like the tourist industry and how the retro gaming market has spiked. But it's a place to really see a lot of cool selection. Like, this is a Tomb Raider Chronicles. Honestly, I just picked this one up because I wanted, a Tomb Raider series in the Japanese edition. So this is just a PS1 Tomb Raider game, which you can't, go wrong with. D2. This is a popular series, and I think I probably did this, to be honest. So this was not like this when I got it. This is probably me shoving it in the suitcase, unknowingly crushing it, which is on me. But this is D2 for the Dreamcast. This is a lot of discs. I believe it's like a 4-disc series, if I'm not mistaken. So you got disc 1, and okay, I want to be careful there. Disc 3 and 4 as well. And there is disc 2, but not a series I ever got to play. So excited to take a look at this kind of like mystery thriller series. I also picked up a lot of Final Fantasies on this trip. I have a Final Fantasy collection for both just NA and Japanese, and anytime I find something I don't have in the collection, whether it's different artwork, specific variant, kind of greatest hits, those type of things. And to be specific, this is 9. So this final, sorry, as I nearly drop and crack another CD case. So Final Fantasy 9, 800 yen. Again, a bargain and a steal. Biohazard for the PlayStation, the original PlayStation 1. Biohazard, if you do not know, is the Japanese naming convention for what we know as Resident Evil. Of course, we had to get the Silent Hill series for the PlayStation 1, and I tried to find more Silent Hill while I was out there. Unfortunately, only stumbled upon this one this trip. There's a couple ones I definitely missed out on, but this is the OG Silent Hill, and that's why the price definitely reflects it, even in the Japanese market. And here we have it. Has I believe this is the spine card right here as well. Final Fantasy Tactics, like I said, picking up a lot more of those just Final Fantasy titles as I can there. Gundam Mobile Suit. I was a big fan of Gundam as a kid and never fully built one growing up, but always wanted to. But for 500 yen, I wanted to pick up a Sega Saturn game because I actually have a Japanese Sega Saturn. And in particular, I picked up one, a junk one on this trip for less than $10 that I'm going to be aiming to fix. So I wanted a Japanese title to kind of test out on. So for 500 yen, Mobile Suit Gundam was the game that I went with. Last, but certainly not least, we have Clock Tower 2. I think this is this the actual one I got from Super Potato? Not sure now. One of the 2 I got from Super Potato, but again, Clock Tower, classic series for the PlayStation, and if you know what these go for on the NA market, these are, you know, a fraction of that, but of course these are the Japanese version. So carrying on with the games here, and on top we actually have some miscellaneous items. This is a Wonder Swan, a handheld that I never had or experienced growing up, and this is something that definitely surpassed me, but I know it has some nostalgia for some, and just for the general purposes of having the handhelds for a collection, I wanted to pick one of these up. This was a junk one, and I can actually translate right now what the message says. So often you'll see when you buy in like junk or used goods stores, when they test it, they'll put a little note here. So for example, if I take a picture of this and just translate it, because I can't fully make it out here, actually this one just says junk operations not confirmed. So this very well could work, and maybe we'll do a separate video on that. So a little bit of a teaser. We'll have a lot of junk goods that I picked up and some stuff that's going to be shipped out to me. So we will see, and maybe this just requires some batteries and proper testing, and we'll see how that goes. Picked up this Nintendo Switch case because I have a Switch case for my like loose games, but it's like big and bulky, so I wanted this kind of slim one, and this is, I believe, an official Nintendo one for $2. Games here. This was from the other Super Potato series. I didn't translate this, but I'm pretty sure this was like in the broken / not working selection or section. So I think this disc might just be really scratched up or something, but this is less than $1. This is like maybe 80 cents that I paid for this, and I really just wanted it for the Japanese Biohazard 5. So this is Resident Evil 5. I just wanted that Japanese artwork, so not going to complain for 80 cents. We also have a couple other Biohazard titles here. We have Biohazard 4 for the PlayStation 2. Again, artwork that I just don't have here. So the classic Resident Evil 4. I have the greatest hits, and this is just the OG version. We have Biohazard Outbreak, which is one that I just never played, and this one feels hefty. So I feel like the manual in here is like pretty substantial, because just weight-wise it feels definitely heavier. So Biohazard Outbreak. We have Dissidia, which is a Final Fantasy series for the PSP, and it's just like an amalgamation of a lot of the, I believe, the Final Fantasy characters, as you can see there at the top. We have Final Fantasy Chronicles for the GameCube. Take a look at the GameCube games, by the way, for Japan. So just to kind of give you a frame of reference, the PS2 is still roughly pretty much the same size, but look at the GameCube titles in comparison. We also have here Mario Party 5. So got a bit of a Japanese GameCube collection going on. I think these are just so cool to see these like little tinier artworks, which fits, because if you know the GameCube disc is like this big. And I guess without knowing it, I've been going for a Mario Party Japanese sub collection across the different consoles here. But here we have, and look at that artwork, by the way, like crazy. Mario Party 5, that kind of glittering effect there. Not quite lenticular, but here you have the case. Look at this. This secures the little booklets, all the paperwork, the manuals in here, and then you have the disc itself. You also have some PSP here. So this is the ultimate hits, or the equivalent, like the greatest hits. This is Final Fantasy Type 0. So I actually have this, the American version, but this is the Japanese version. We have Final Fantasy 12, if I'm not mistaken. Is my math right there? Or my Roman numerals? This is just the Ultimate Hits version. I have the normal version of this. And then we have Armored Core. So this is the Armored Core 2. This is another series that I'm going to want to collect eventually, so I picked this one up just to kind of get things started. So yeah, the FromSoft series, that is Armored Core. And then we have, last but not least here, this is a little bit faded and dirty, but this is Final Fantasy X2. Speaking of Final Fantasy, 2 other things I wanted to show really quickly that I did pick up as well were from the Square Enix store, actually. So this is in Akiba, or Akihabara. This is the Final Fantasy VII Tifa and Cloud acrylic stand. So the way these works are, like, you just prop these up there. It's all flat, but you just pop these out essentially, and this in the base stand, and they just kind of like freestand on a desk. I thought these were really cool display pieces, especially for my Final Fantasy collection. So this was actually at the like Animate Studios. It's like a chain out there, but basically they have a Square Enix one specifically in Akiba, and you can get a ton of different merch from Final Fantasy, Dragon's Quest, like across the kind of Square Enix / Squaresoft chain. Also, if it wasn't evident from earlier, I did stop by the Nintendo store in Shibuya, the main Nintendo store, and this was my first time actually going there. So we took a spin at the gashapon machines that they have, which are just like those, you know, kind of you put money in and you spin and you get a random prize. Very, very famous and popular in Japan. They have these keychains that you got to spin, and it was like limited 2 per person. So in particular, well, ultimately I realized I should have tried to collect them all and gone multiple days or what have you. Ultimately, I really did just want the N64 ones, and on my first spin, I ended up getting it. So it was like perfect chance that I got the N64 one. Actually, what happened, I remember now. I got N64 ones on my spins, but, whoops, sorry. I had a friend who I also went with who he had gotten, I believe it was either the analog stick, and I got like 2 of these or something like that effect, and I just traded him so that I got the complete set here. So here you have it. These are just, you know, really cool novelty things that are exclusive to the Tokyo Nintendo store. So you got the C sticks, the AB buttons, and they're just basically like fidget toys. Like you can put these on a keychain. I have no idea what I'm going to put these on because I don't carry keys, but, oops, sorry. I'm sure I can hang this there, but they almost kind of feel like fidget spinners or toys to me because you can just kind of hold on to them and mess around with them. But I thought it was a cool little collector's piece. They have like the GameCube, the NES, and the SNES controllers, or in Japan at least, like the Famicom style controllers. So that was pretty cool. I did pick up this Nintendo mug alongside of the other items I picked up, but I just couldn't pass up on having this little small piece of memorabilia, even though I already have a lot of mugs in the house here. So check out this coffee mug. You got Mario, you got the Splatoon characters, you got Animal Crossing, Link, Yoshi, is that Lakitu? And you got more Splatoon characters around. So, but yeah, moving along here because there's still more items to go through. A couple random loose items picked up. I got this Nintendo 64. I believe this is the Rumble Pack, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken. This is the Rumble Pack. For the N64, 900 yen, but this is like the complete in-box version. So I thought this was sick just to have as a display piece. I don't even care if this works or not. Just to have this is pretty sick in box. We have the PlayStation 2 official. This is the vertical stand. I had this as a kid growing up for my PlayStation 2. I always thought the PlayStation 2 accessories were so cool. And this just allowed you to properly put the PlayStation 2 vertical and like have a little support to it. So it's like just this little stand, like you can see there on the side, that you can put your PlayStation 2 on. So for less than $10 in box, I thought it'd be cool just to pick up for my PlayStation 2 collection. Speaking of collections, another thing we got for the N64 collection here is the Diahawks N64 orange controller. So Diahawks is like I don't want to say it's a company, I believe, or a brand that had a lot of exclusives for the N64, and in particular, they had an N64 console exclusive, like the Diahawks exclusive that was only sold through them, and it was orange and black. So it was like this really cool orange and black N64 that had a matching controller. So kind of reminiscent of the Fire Orange N64 meets that black accent, as you can see here on the controller. This one was definitely a little bit more pricier. They knew what they had here, so 6,600 yen, but still a good deal on the controller. I think it's like roughly 40-ish bucks, so figured why not pick this up in the hopes that one day I can get the Diahawks console separate. Final Fantasy, this is not 7. This is what is my Roman numerals failing me here? Also 12. So this is this is the same as earlier, but this is just the International Zodiac Job System, and this cool casings. I don't know if this was like a special edition one or what have you, or like a variant. I honestly didn't play 12, to be honest, but I know I have so many variants of 12, and this is just yet another one here in this cool kind of slipcover case. And then we have one of the more expensive pickups that I got here. So let me kind of set the stage more properly. So this is Mother for the Famicom. And NA will know this game more specifically as Earthbound, and this is the NES series. This is a very popular game, the NA Earthbound in particular. Very, very, popular RPG for the Nintendo, and this is for the original Famicom, which is the equivalent of the NES, so to speak, in Japan. This is something that I saw in the glass case that I know goes for quite a bit, and it's one of those cooler collector items. The Earthbound is on my grail list eventually for an NA copy, an NA edition to add to the collection, but I wanted to get the Mother RPG specifically in my collection eventually too. Got it at 19,000 yen. So keep in mind, a lot of the prices that you're going to see here, this is tax included. And the benefit of a lot of what I got was that I got a lot of tax free on certain items. So the sticker price here was actually lower on some items. And then some stores will even offer you further discounts if you pay with like a specific card. So ultimately, I got this at a okay price. I don't want to say it was like a steal or a bargain in this case. But you'll note there are a couple stickers and warnings here. So from what I was able to make out at the time on translation is that it said there was some damage to the instruction booklet. It said the word burn in it, but I wasn't quite sure what it meant by that. So otherwise, it didn't seem to say anything about the game itself not working. And with that in mind, I figured, you know what, I'm just going to pull the trigger, take a chance on it, and see. But this is actually going to be my first time opening it and seeing what is actually going on here. My assumption is that maybe there's some... I didn't know if burn meant more like sun damage or sun fading. And then I imagine maybe there's something wrong with like the manual itself. Like there's some gunk on it or whatever, but let's experience this for the first time together. Now, for those of you wondering, price-wise, 19,000 yen is roughly like $130. So I got it for a little bit under that because, again, the tax exemption, and I bought a bunch of stuff at once. You can see here, this had, I believe this is the original price sticker, so this is pretty cool. So it did mention on the kind of translation, this has other store stickers on it. I'm imagining this is one of the original price stickers because 5,200 yen is like roughly $50-ish, which I imagine it might have gone for at the time. I might be wrong. Price charting wise, this goes for like 140, 150 complete. This is just the original Mother. This isn't Mother 1+2 for the Famicom. But let's go ahead and see. The box condition itself is decent, I will say, just like the overall box itself. Not too crazy damage here. There's a little bit up here, but for the most part, still display worthy. And let's go ahead and see what's inside. So we're going to go ahead and pull on the plastic here. Okay, let's see what I ended up getting here. So here is the manual. So the Mother manual. Honestly, I mean, maybe inside. I mean, to be honest, truthfully, it seems okay. I mean, more than okay. I expected like there to be a pretty big like splotch or something, but I want to see the map because this does have a map here. So let's, dang, just opening it up, it's, I don't know how to describe it. It just smelled like old paper, like when you have like an old newspaper or something. But I mean, look at this. This is the full map. Looks fine to me. I'm trying to see. See, when I was reading the translation originally, I thought it said like there was a smudge or like something stuck to this, but no, this honestly looks fine. Like for how old this is. Mind you, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Mother, like this game in particular, was 1989. So that's just for reference how old this title is. And let's go ahead and look at the cart here, and even like the original like paperwork or I don't know if it's like the warranty or reference cards, but I mean, look at this. Like, this is crazy. Like, all of this stuff, the original stuff that was kept with. And here is the Famicom card. These things feel like comically cheap because essentially this is like just the board and then this really like thin kind of plastic here. Like, this was the original Famicom, and the equivalent of what you would have like as a NES cart essentially, but much more compact. I actually have a working Famicom, so I'm excited to kind of just see and test this out. Like if I was gonna play Mother, like there's a bunch of other ways to play it than risking the physical condition here, but nonetheless, that'll be fun to throw in the Famicom and just see. But yeah, I mean, this is just a cool piece of like gaming history in a sense, and like one of those OG RPGs, and to have it complete in box at what I would say is a decent price point, a little bit under $130, CIB. And that's why like you always got to check the translation thing to kind of see what's wrong or what's noted. I'll talk about this more in my tips video, so I won't elaborate too much, but like this talks a little bit about like at least the rough translation. Like if I'm using the Google translation, I imagine what it meant by burn and stuff, or damage burn, has to be like the sun fading on the actual box in itself. All right, last but certainly not least here, one of the big ticket items that took up the most space in my suitcase on the way back was this Spice Orange complete in box GameCube. I got a couple consoles while I was out there. Most are going to be kind of shipped back. Most were like junk consoles, like I mentioned earlier. I got some Sega Saturn and some other stuff coming in the mail, but this is the one that I wanted to bring back with me because this is actually one of the grails that I wanted on this trip. And not necessarily grails, but it was on my to buy list while I was in Japan. Like, I knew that the Spice Oranges were more in abundance in Japan, since obviously they're exclusive to Japan. This is a colorway that only came out in Japan. Not to say you cannot get these in the States. Like, these are all over Whatnot, eBay, so on and so forth. But I wanted to get one in Japan. Like, it meant a little bit for me to get it on this trip in Japan specifically. So while I was in Tokyo, as I unbox all this, I saw a ton of Spice Oranges across different stores, Suragaya's, across Akiba, so on and so forth. The problem is, like, I was in more of those tourist areas where I was seeing them, so prices were pretty much on par relatively with what you would pay, you know, in the States for them loose. And I was originally looking for a deal. There was one spot where I found like a decent deal for a loose Spice Orange, and it didn't have a controller, which I wasn't too worried about since I actually have a Spice Orange controller already. And I passed on it, and I regretted it because that was like the last time I saw Spice Orange before we left Tokyo. And then when I was in Okinawa, I could not find a Spice Orange GameCube to save my life. And then we had gone to a hard off originally when I first got to Okinawa, and no dice, but I decided to go like 4 or 5 days later to see if they potentially like restocked. And lo and behold, the day we went back, a couple days before I actually left, we found this complete in box GameCube Spice Orange here. And the price was fair. This actually ended up being a gift from my partner. She knew that this is the one thing I was looking for on the trip for the most part. So as a gift, she actually ended up picking this up for me. And to get it complete in box in this condition, and I mean, wow, look at that. Like, even just looking at the console from the top, looks like it was kept in pretty solid condition. Has all the cords and the hookups from the most part, at least from what I'm seeing, and it has the controller. So for right around $100, I am not complaining. You have the standard Nintendo AV cables here. These actually work for the N64 as well. Fun fact. And I think is it also the Super Nintendo? You have the console itself with all the inserts here. Again, just a testament to how people keep their consoles in the condition of things here. Just lift it out of the box. You have the power cables here, which, since this is this is like a DOL 001 Japan edition console, I believe it's going to use a specific voltage, if I'm not mistaken, because like, at least I need to make sure here. This is a 100 volt adapter, which I believe I need to double check. I believe it's fine here because like the way it is, at least when I lived in Japan for like certain electronics, and I think it was more so American electronics in a Japanese home, I would have to use like a power transformer to use like my electronics. This is going to definitely be something that's, just for the GameCube collection. Maybe I'll consider modding this in the future, but this is pretty sick to have an OG Spice Orange. Nowadays, you can get like third-party reshells for this stuff, but to have an actual Japanese one, and I mean, just look at this condition. Like, buttons look good. Power button feels fine. Nothing stuck. Reset button's good. The front, a little bit of, usage there. You can clearly see, but that can be cleaned up. All of the adapter doors or the, like serial port, expansion port adapters are all here. You got the DOL001, which means you have both the digital AV port as well as the analog AV out. You have a matching controller, which this feels like barely even used. The C-stick has a little bit of wear on the top there, but the actual analogs feel like snappy. The triggers still feel tight. The GameCube controller is by far like one of my favorite just overall designs and style. It just feels solid. And yeah, this controller just feels all around like barely used, if not just really taken care of and not cleaned out, because even just looking all around the edges, it looks like it's barely even used. Oh, and before I forget, some other light items I wanted to showcase here. Common theme of regret, but these Amiibos. I was never a crazy like Amiibo person, but as I started to kind of build out the game room and stuff like that, I think they're nice little like accents for decorations in the shelves. So there's a couple of Amiibos in particular that I wanted to pick up. I wanted a Samus one, and specifically the Zero Suit Samus. I wanted this Link's Awakening kind of Toon Link Amiibo, or Toon, like kind of cartoon style. And then I decided to pick up this Breath of the Wild Zelda. And the reason I picked up a lot of these are because these were like on clearance prices. So they were like originally like 1,000-ish yen or 1,500 yen, give or take, depending on the Amiibo. And on top of that, they had a couple hundred yen slash. So they were like all like close to, if not around $10. In some cases, somewhere under $10. They had a lot. At the time when I picked these up in Okinawa, I just got the 3 I wanted, but there were definitely more. And originally I thought like, it's going to be a hassle to kind of pack these, so I didn't want to get too many. In retrospect, I could have just shipped the rest, and I should have just gotten more of the cooler ones or the rarer ones, but I'll settle for these 3 here. And with that, ladies and gents, that wraps up the initial haul in terms of the gaming items I picked up on this Japan trip. All in all, I didn't keep a total count, and I'm sure I could maybe go back and roughly check how much I spent on all this. It's definitely like a couple $100, if not. But that being said, I think, the advantages when you do or are planning or have a Japan trip is like you are getting things at much better prices when it comes to like a lot of the loose games and the stuff that I talked about. Obviously, don't get me wrong. They have their share of rare items. The Mother copy that I picked up for Famicom is one of those more expensive titles, and there's a lot of cooler stuff that I saw, more expensive stuff that I saw. But, with the Japanese titles, obviously they have their own different rarity and variants. And whether you're picking them up because you want the Japanese variant, you want the Japanese artwork, you want a specific collection, just keep in mind when you're shopping for these things, obviously, especially like the disc-based games, if you're buying these to play, having a Japanese console or understanding which consoles are region-free and region-locked, always important, because at the end of the day, outside of collecting, I also want to play these titles, and there are things that I want to add to my collection. But if you do not have, like, if you're buying, like, for example, Japanese PlayStation 1 games expecting that they'll work on your standard PlayStation 1, just things to consider at the end of the day. And that's why I'm going to be doing a whole separate video on that, so stay tuned. I'm super happy with the pickups I got, that it kind of contributed to the N64 collection that I'm working on. went into just the general stuff I want to add to my overall personal collection, and just cool things and memorabilia that I wanted to add that I can say were from Japan or the Japanese editions. I have a couple other handhelds and consoles coming in via the mail. A lot of those are junk consoles that I'm looking forward to doing repair videos or mod videos on. So that's a lot of the stuff that I tend to pick up from like the hard offs. Is the kind of junk consoles I can turn around, get them for cheap. A lot of cool finds this trip, a lot of great additions to the overall sub collections that I have going on here, and overall just a very, very productive and fun trip that I highly enjoyed. I know this is a long one, but I hope you enjoyed the haul and kind of look at a lot of the stuff that was picked up here. If you have questions or comments, leave them down in the links below, and look forward to the other video that I have coming out on this very topic about game hunting in Japan and my tips in particular. As always, thanks for watching, gamers.